All right, problem number 1 says use any method to graph the line and state two ordered pairs and the slope of the line. So the first one is x equals 3. All right, to make some ordered pairs, what it's saying is x is always 3. So you could pick 3 for all your values of x and then pick anything you want for y. There are no restrictions. You could do 0, 1, and 2. Those give 3 ordered pairs right there, and there's lots of possibilities. So some ordered pairs are 3, 0, 3, 1, 3, 2. So if we're going to graph this, so those are possibilities. Let's say that's 5. There's the x-axis. Here's 3. That's the y-axis. Let's graph these 3 ordered pairs. We've got 3, 0, 3, 1, and 3, 2. So this gives us a vertical line. And the slope of a vertical line is undefined. So the slope is undefined. Now, you could also get the slope by using the formula for slope. So you take any of those 2 points. Let's say we take 3, 0 and 3, 1, and we use the formula for slope. So we take one of the ordered pairs and put y over x. How about we put 1 over 3? And the other ordered pair, we're going to put y over x. How about 0 over 3? And that gets 1 over 0, but 1 over 0 is not defined. So you would still get that the slope was undefined. So that's problem A. Here's problem 2. Y equals negative 3x plus 1. Now remember, there's a lot of different ways to graph lines. We can get a table of ordered pairs, so you could use the slope. I'm going to just do a table of ordered pairs here. And these will give us some possibilities. So we want to pick some convenient values of x. Well, since there's no fraction in front of the x, I'm just going to pick some whole numbers. How about negative 1, 0, 1, and 2? So we're going to plug in negative 1 for x. So when you plug in negative 1, you've got negative 3 times negative 1 plus 1, which is 4. So this gives us the ordered pair negative 1, 4, for instance. So that's one possibility. You could have also done negative 3 times 0 plus 1. That gives us 1. So that's the ordered pair 0, 1. Or negative 3 times 1 plus 1. That's going to give us the negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. This gives us this ordered pair 1, negative 2. And we could do a fourth. I only asked for 2, but I'm just showing you there's so many. I'd have infinitely many possibilities. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. So these are some possibilities. You may have come up with something different than that. All right, the slope, when it's in slope-intercept form like this, is the coefficient of x. And you could also do that by using the formula for slope. So the slope is negative 3. This time it's pretty easy because this equation is in slope-intercept form, so the slope is negative 3. And so to graph this carefully, we need to plot at least 2 points. I always suggest you do 3 to make sure it's on a straight line, and that you use graph paper, which I don't have handy. All right, so we've got negative 1, 4. That's this ordered pair. Oops, sorry. And of course, you do want to state what the values on the x and y axis are. All right, so back to this, we've got 0, 1, and there's 2 ordered pairs right there. You could also do these, 1, negative 2, and they seem to be lying on a straight line, and then you would take a credit card or something and draw a nice straight line. And there's our second problem. You could also determine the slope by looking at the picture and note that if you start at one point to get to another, you're going 1 in the x direction and with positive direction x. So you can get the slope by saying the change in the y is you're going positive 1, and in the y direction you're going down 3 to get to another point. So that reduces to negative 3. So the slope is still negative 3. All right, here's our next problem. I would use the x and y-intercept method here. since it's not in the form y equals mx plus b. So to get the x-intercept, we're going to let y equal 0. So in other words, the y-coordinate will be 0. So we're going to take this equation, 4x minus 3y, and we're going to plug in 0 for y and solve for x. So this gives us x equals 3. So that's what goes in here, and we get one order pair is 3, 0. All right, let's get the y-intercept now. We're going to put in 0 for x. Doesn't matter which one you do first, by the way. So we're going to put in 0 for x. And that means we have negative 3y equals 12. And we'll divide both sides by negative 3 this time. So y is negative 4. So we have two ordered pairs. Oops. Very good. 0, negative 4. Now there's two ways to get the slope. You could just put this in slope-intercept form by solving for y. So if you did that, I would subtract 4x from both sides. Let me write this better. So I'd have negative 3y equals negative 4x plus 12, and then divide both sides by negative 3 to get y equals 4/3 x minus 4, and I can see the slope is 4/3. So that's one way to get the slope. I could say the slope is 4/3. Another way is to take those two ordered pairs I had up there, 3, 0 and 0, negative 4. So I could take 3, 0 and 0, negative 4 and use the formula for slope. So I take one order pair and put y over x. So how about I put the first order pair you see happens to be 0 over 3. Next one, negative 4 over 0. And if I simplify that, I get positive 4 over 3. I get the same slope. So I get 4/3 doing it that way as well. All right, so now let's go ahead and graph this line. We've got two ordered pairs and we've got the slope right here, right? That's the slope. So far we are asked for two ordered pairs in the slope. Let's go ahead and graph. Okay. Oops, it's not very straight. Use real graph paper. So we've got some points on the x-axis and on the y-axis. And you always want to label at least one number on each axis. All right, so I've got 3, 0, that's one point. Another point is 0, negative 4, so I guess I needed to make this a little bit longer down here. So here's that one. And then you draw the line. Here's part D. We're graphing the line y equals negative 1. This is similar to the first problem, but notice you could put this in slope-intercept form and write it as y equals 0x minus 1. And note then the slope is 0. It's the coefficient of x. So in this particular problem, m is going to be 0. The slope is going to be 0. All right, to get some ordered pairs, we just make some ordered pairs where y is always negative 1. So you just put negative 1 for y. Here's three ordered pairs, and pick any number you want. For x, how about 0, 1, and 2? There are three ordered pairs. And then we go ahead and graph it. Graph those three ordered pairs. Right, so there's 4 on the x-axis, and let's do 4 spaces on the y-axis. All right, so let's graph these three ordered pairs. 0, negative 1 is right here. 1, negative 1 is right here. and 2, -1 is right here, and we get a horizontal line. And the slope of horizontal lines is always 0. So it does make sense that the slope is going to be 0. Make a note of that. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Vertical lines have a slope that's undefined. Vertical lines have an undefined slope. That was like x equals something. All right, but this is a horizontal line. You could have also used the slope formula, taken any of these 2 points, and gotten the answer that way as well. Here's the last part to number 1. It says use any method. So you could either use the slope-intercept method, or you could plot some points by putting in some numbers for x and solving for y. I'm going to do this one using the slope-intercept method. So the slope is the coefficient of x, so the slope is 5/4. And the y-intercept means what happens when you put in 0 for x, you get -5. It's always this number over here. That's b, right? b is -5, which means that's the order pair 0, -5. So what we could do is graph 0, -5, and then use the slope to find another point. So 5/4, remember the bottom number is in the x direction, we go +4, then we go up 5, and I get this line here. Now another way to do this is to plot some points, make some ordered pairs, x, and then figure out what 5/4 x minus 5 is. That's what y would be. And you want to put in some convenient values for x. Notice you're going to have to do 5/4 times x, so I'm going to use a multiple of 4. So I could put in 0, that's easy to always put in for x, but 4 is another easy number to put in for x. So those are the 2 I'm going to try. So I have 5/4 times 0 minus 5, that's -5. So that's one order pair, 0, -5, which, by the way, happens to be right here. There's your 0, -5. I don't know if you could see that. Let's do it with red. There's 0, -5 right there. And now let's put in 4 for x. And the 4's cancel. And have to remember to subtract 5. So the 4's cancel, you got 5 minus 5, which is 0. So there's your other order pair for 0 right here. So you would have gotten the same 2 order pairs if you had chosen 0 and 4 for x, and you would have gotten the same line. So we've got our slope. We've got 2 ordered pairs here. The ordered pairs that I'm showing, and there's lots of different possibilities, but these are 2 order pairs, so we just happen to use those. And then we've got our graph. So I'm going to take off those red, whoops, I'm going to redo that. I was trying to just get rid of that little red thing because that's really not part of the graph. Nope, doesn't want to do it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so there's your line. All right, so we did 5 graphs for number 1. Right, finally on to problem 2. Complete each ordered pair. So it is a solution of 3x plus y equals -2. All right, so in the first ordered pair, it says y is -8. So we're going to take this equation and plug in -8 for y. So it's 3x plus -8 equals -2. And then we simply solve that equation to find out what x equals. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. Divide both sides by 3, x equals 2, so that completes the order pair. I put in 2 for x. All right, do the same thing on this next one. We take 3x plus y equals -2, and this time I'm plugging in 3 for x. So 3 times 3 plus y is -2. This is 9 plus y is -2. just subtract 9 from both sides. Make sure you think of this as negative 2 plus negative 9. So y is negative 11 when I plug in 3 for x, right? Here's where I'm plugging in each time. You can see I'm plugging in 3 for x, and here I'm plugging in negative 8 for y. So y is negative 11 completes that order pair. All right, here's problem 3. State the x and y intercepts of 4x minus 3y equals 6. We did a problem like this in number 1 because that was the method I used for graphing. So to get the x-intercept, you always are going to put in 0 for y. So we take this equation and we plug in 0 for y, right? I'm taking the top equation out there, 4x minus 3y, plugging in 0 for y, and I'm solving for x. So I divide both sides by 4. That's 3 halves, or 1 1/2. It doesn't matter which way you write it up here. I'm just going to write it as 1 1/2. So that's the x-intercept. All right, now let's do the y-intercept. For the y-intercept, we're going to put in 0 for x. So we have 4 times 0, plugging in 0 for x, minus 3y equals 6. So that 0 minus 3y is 6, or negative 3y equals 6. Divide both sides by negative 3, and y is negative 2. So when you put in 0 for x, we got that y was negative 2. So our answers are, here's the x-intercept, there's the y-intercept. All right, here's number 4. State the intercepts and slope of the line given. All right, so we look and see where the lines intersect the y-axis and the x-axis. So on the y-axis, it's going through 0, 2. So that would be the y-intercept, 0, 2. And the x-axis, it's going through 3, 0. So that's the x-intercept. 2 ways to get the slope. One way is to look at the picture, start from one of the order pairs and see how do you get to the other order pair, and I would have to go to the right in the x direction plus 3. Remember, the x direction is the denominator, the change in x, and then I would have to go down 2 spaces to get to this point, so that is the y value. So the slope is going to be negative 2/3, doing it that way. The other way is you could use these 2 order pairs and use the formula for slope. Take one order pair, put the y over the x, and take the other order pair, the y over the x, and subtract. And that gives us negative 2/3 as well. So the slope is negative 2/3. So there we have it. Going on to the next problem. Number 5, write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form and state the slope and y-intercept. So remember, we have to solve for y so we can get it in this form, y equals mx plus b. That is the slope-intercept form of a line. All right, so to solve for y, I first need to subtract 4x from both sides. By the way, there might be something different you do. There isn't always just one way, but this seems most natural to me. So I have negative 4x plus 12 when I subtract 4x from both sides. And then we divide everything by negative 3 to solve for y. So this gives us 4/3 x plus negative 4, which is same as minus 4. So there's our equation in slope-intercept form. So the y-intercept, remember, that means when you put in 0 for x, y would be negative 4. Right? That is b, right? And the y-intercept is in the form 0b.